Excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. If you have joined us, thank you so much and a warm welcome. We are about to start, but we would like to give it 2 more minutes for those who have trouble logging in, so that they have an opportunity to get into the session and see the whole thing from the start. So 2 more minutes, please. Grab a drink, make yourself comfy, and then we'll get going. All right, excellent. Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, and a very warm welcome to our PhD panel, PhD session. My name is Lasse Gerrits. I am the academic director of the Institute for Housing and Urban Development Studies, which is part of the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. And I'm professor for the governance of complex urban transformations and one of the promoters in this program. We have other people also joining us on board. I'll introduce them shortly, but just for now, I just want to mention that with us here today are Dasup and Isa, who are both PhD researchers at our institute. And other people who are present here are Nathalie, Lou, and Annette, who can also answer questions you may have on administration, admissions, funding, and so on and so forth. So that's a large, nice little group that we have here together. What we'll do today is we will talk about a few things. So first of all, I will discuss with you what doing a PhD means at our institute, also what it does not mean, because it's good to set expectations properly. I will then address a couple of the main aspects of the program so that you get a good understanding, a good overview of what the program does, what it does not do, what is required from you should you enroll, and so on. And then a large chunk of today's afternoon is will be spent with our PhD researchers, Dasup and Isa, who will tell you about their experience, the research that they're doing, but also what it is like to do research at IHS and how it works for them. And then after that, there's ample opportunity for you to ask questions. As I've mentioned before, these can be questions about scope and contents, the kind of research we supervise, but also on administration, visa, funding, anything that you would like to ask us. Everybody who's involved in the program one way or the other is present today, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Now, should you have questions, you can do it in two ways. You can share them in the chat. You can do it already. Someone is monitoring that. And alternatively, you can wait a bit and then ask your questions after the presentation bits have been completed. So what is a PhD and what is it not? Let's talk a bit about that. Well, for starters, doing PhD research means sleepless nights. It means all-nighters, working late at night. A lot of stuff happens actually at night. It also means dealing with disappointments, with rejections, and some of us sometimes suffer from the imposter syndrome. They think they're doing fine, but then in the back of the mind they think they're not doing fine and they should be doing better. PhD is also developing a ramen or coffee addiction, or a ramen and coffee addiction, or ramen and coffee and iced coffee and tea addiction. Either way, it's not always very healthy. You may question your life. You have so many deadlines, so many. And it's 4 years, and 4 years sounds like a lot of time, but actually it flies by. It's a blink of an eye. Now, this was the funny bit, and obviously I just wanted to highlight that because there's a grain of truth in it, but also it has really nice bits and pieces to it. So let's also talk about the nice parts of what it's doing, what a PhD is like. It is very much an intellectual endeavor. It is 4 years of your time in which you are allowed the luxury, if you will, of doing research, academic research, to become a real expert on a certain topic. It is an opportunity for you to become an independent scientist or an independent academic, either way. Someone who will be seen as the expert, but also someone who is able to develop independent thoughts and not just replicate what's out there, but to come up with new ideas, novel ideas, new ways of seeing research, new ways of presenting urban questions to the world. A third thing that it is, and this is an important bit, it is very often mandatory for academic careers. And to this, I would like to add, it's not only mandatory for academic careers, but lots of people need a PhD title also if they want to advance within their own organization or in another organization. But if you would like an academic career, then this is 100% mandatory. You first have to complete a PhD in order to get there. The fourth point, yeah, we always feel a bit strange about writing this up, that it's a life-changing experience, because this sounds very marketing-y. But in reality, it is a life-changing experience. There's no two ways around it. In many ways, you coming over to Rotterdam, working here in an international environment with experts, with other PhD researchers, setting up new life in a way, traveling around the world if your research demands that. Those are a very important experience that will resonate throughout your life. And when we talk to people who have graduated from the program, they always, for them, being at IHS was sort of a very key point, almost like, one of those few stepping stones in your life where you really feel your life taking on a whole new different direction, and for the better. So yes, the whole bit about sleepless night and ramen and coffee addictions, they are real, but also it is a very positive, life-changing experience. And the last bit I would like to highlight, coming also from my own experience, a PhD really means unlimited tinkering with the real world. Well, within limitations, obviously, we have our ethical boundaries. But what I mean by saying that this is unlimited tinkering is that as a PhD researcher, you very often are granted views into places where normally you cannot go. And only recently, just from my own experience, together with one of the PhD researchers, visited train control centers in the Netherlands. That is not something where you normally would be given access to, but once you do a PhD, all of a sudden doors open. So this is what PhD research is about in a nutshell. But I also like to say a few things about what it is not, because this is important. Because some people who apply think of a PhD program as a master's program, but then lasting for 4 years instead of 2 or 1. But it's not a master's program. Although you will be able, and you're encouraged to take courses, the majority of your time, a vast majority of your time, will be spent doing research yourself, independently, under guidance and under supervision, and in consultation with your peers and with the colleagues here at IHS. But it is not like you follow a course, you take an exam, and then you pass. And so by implication, a PhD thesis is also not a master thesis. A PhD thesis is really a very different piece of research. Think of it in this way. A master thesis just proves to your supervisors that you have taken in all the learning materials of your masters and that you can sort of recreate a piece of research out of that semi-independently, but usually under a lot of supervision in a very short period of time. Your PhD thesis will be an in-depth analysis of a certain topic at very different levels compared to a master thesis. It will be 4 years, and you will be doing a lot of it yourself. In fact, most of the PhD research in our program starts by, taking stock of what the literature has said, doing some preliminary research, a bit of data collection, and checking with the supervisors if this is correct. And after 3 or 4 years, they usually tell us what should happen, and they tell us what the research look like, and they tell us what we should learn. And that is the moment where we realize that someone is ready to defend. The third point we would like to highlight, we often receive applications from people saying, well, there's a policy problem in my city, so I'm going to do a PhD research about this. We absolutely acknowledge that a lot of cities have urban policy problems. The question is whether a PhD thesis is going to solve that, and in many ways, it probably won't. So if you really would like to deal with a real life problem in your particular city, then get on with it and not write a PhD thesis about this. And I'm highlighting this because while a PhD thesis can have practical implications, in reality, you're primarily addressing an academic question, a scientific question, and that is your main target. And the last thing, it's not easy. It is fun, it is great. You feel intellectual growth, you feel personal growth accelerated in many ways, incomparable to what you've done so far, but easy it is not. It's a difficult bit of research, and that's what's supposed to be, right? A PhD degree is not something that you should just receive very quickly and without much effort. So that is just a few things on what I wanted to say about what a PhD program is, what it is not, and what is expected from you, what is not expected from you. In the next slide, I would like to talk a bit about the program itself. So this is the program in numbers, basically. We have had 25 graduates until now from 22 countries. So really nice global spread there. And here you see a couple of the topics that we supervise: urban governance, climate change and resilience, urban planning, housing, urban spatial development, digital infrastructures and normal infrastructures, and smart cities, and social justice and gender. So that's a very broad palette of things that you can do research on. Now, we often receive a question, people asking us, is this all you can research? To which I would answer, no, not necessarily. If you have a great idea that does not quite fit into this, we are more than happy to consider it. This is just there for you to get an understanding of the sort of the direction in which we are going. But as you will see, as you will hear very soon from our PhD researchers, their work is again different and takes on different angles. So on to the main aspects of the program then. So what does it look like? We offer, in principle, a 4-year trajectory. Our experience is that you will need 4 years. Some people take a bit longer. No, some people take a bit longer. Actually, I think I can only think of one example who was quicker, but I think 4 years is a very good representation of the amount of time it takes. You will work in a very international environment. IHS is thoroughly international, although we're based in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam. Most of the staff is not Dutch. Your PhD researchers, your colleagues, so your peers, in other words, are usually not Dutch, save for 1 or 2 exceptions. It is a very international environment coming from many different places in the world. If you decide to work here, we'll give you a place to work. You will have a working station. You'll get other perks, to access to the library. You'll get access to our digital networks. All of that is there too. And the thing I would like to highlight here is that we are part of the Erasmus Graduate School of Social Science and Humanities. And that means that you're also free to choose courses. Some people may want to brush up their quantitative skills. There's a course for that. Or the qualitative skills. There's a course for that. Some of you may want to, I don't know, study GIS, Geographical Information Systems. There's a course for it. Some of you would like to get better at writing. There's a course for it. So you're free to choose them. And we have a very open setup here. You can take courses. Do not only take courses, right? You also have to do the research itself. But yes, there's room to take courses. And the last thing I would like to highlight here is that we take applications basis on application rounds. So for those of you who have been with us before, or have been in an information session before. This has changed. We used to accept people on a rolling basis. Now we have clustered that in different rounds. So if you go on our website, you will find the next deadline, and so you know by when you can submit and by when you will receive an answer from our side. So that is all the stuff I had wanted to say about the program itself. If you have any questions, post them in the chat or ask them later on. For now, I would like to switch to two of our PhD researchers in the program. And the first I would like to introduce is Daasup. Hello, that's Daasup. Daasup's research is on social well-being of elderly and the role of public spaces in that in East Asian neighborhoods. Daasup, thank you so much for joining us today. Perhaps you could say a few things first about why you research this and why this is important for you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daasup, and really nice to meet you. Yes. Actually, my background is landscape architecture, so I'm really interested in the places like parks or streets where people meet and do their daily lives. So I have been interested in that kind of places, but during the pandemic, I felt my grandparents got their health became very weak because they cannot meet people, because they cannot go to their public space like church or community centers. So I feel like I want to study about the public space and older people, and the aging societies is really severe urban challenges. So I think it is really nice to understand the relationship between the older peoples and their social well-being and public space. Is really helpful for the urban planning, but also the sociologists and yes, nursing and other different kinds of the academic fields.
And could you tell us a bit about what you consider public spaces? So what is it that you mean by public spaces?
Actually, like my first definition is public space is kind of like parks and plaza. So it is publicly operated spaces in urban space. But in the literature, there are so many definitions of the public space, and every researchers use different definitions. So some people use the public space as a outdoor public space, but some researchers consider indoor and outdoor public spaces. And also another researchers use the cafe or restaurant as a public space. So and there are different qualities of the public space. For example, there are accessibilities and safeties, and this kind of like different definitions and different aspect of the public space is really hinder the understanding of the public space influence. So I figured out how the actual older people consider as their public space for their social relationship. So right now I'm doing the analyzing the qualitative data from the interview data. So yes, I want to figure it out from their perspective.
And because you finished your fieldwork relatively recently, right? You went to Seoul, to Tokyo, to Taipei. Could you talk a bit about what you found the most surprising thing you saw when you did your field research? Or maybe first talk a bit about how you did the research and then talk a bit about your most surprising finding from that field research.
Okay. So yes. In the literature, there are so many studies about the Western countries. So I'm focusing on the East Asian countries. And I thought the context of the East Asian regional context will influence their behavior in public space. So I want to figure out how the context influence the mechanism between the public space and older people. So I try to figure out which countries and which cities I should think about. And I think many people knows about the East Asian cities have a really severe aging societies,
Yeah.
and especially in Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, China, they experience really severe aging societies. And I try to figure out in that country how urban elderly people experience their daily lives and how they uh, feels about their urban environment. So yes,
And
that's why I choose these kind of spaces.
how
Yes.
did you go about? So how did you collect your data?
Yes. So I try to decide to do the interviews,
Hmm.
and it is the one of the most hardest things I did.
Why?
I'm from South Korea, so collecting the Korean data is quite easier than other cities. So I try to contact the local community centers and local church, and this kind of like contacting their community is really hard. And I have to try send the emails and do the phone call and just go and knock the door. And however, uh, I was really lucky. People are really welcome me and they try to help my research. So uh, after this kind of like actions, they recommend really lots of participants and they introduce so many things so I can access them and do the interview. So it was really dynamic
Hmm.
procedure, and I cannot say everybody has a similar gonna have a similar experience like me because I didn't expect this kind of process. Uh, because like after I finished the Tokyo's interview, I didn't expect I gonna do the Taipei's interview because I don't have any connections with the Taiwanese communities, and even I cannot speak Chinese, so I didn't know I can do the collecting the data in Taipei. But like after I contacted the local university in Taiwan,
Yeah.
I can get some like help from the university, and the contacting the local communities, they are really welcome to the foreigners. So they are really nice to help me. And yes, this kind of like happening is really kind of like a magic. Yes. So it is really, yeah, interesting and a wonderful experience for me.
And what was the most surprising finding coming out of that field work?
Yes. The most interesting finding is I'm from the landscape architecture, so my background is landscape architecture. So I first time I start the PhD project, I really focused on the physical aspect of the public space, for example, or like outdoor or indoor, or like a distance or safety, like physical safety. But after the interviews and during the analyzing the data, I figured out the psychological accessibility and psychological safety is really important, as well as physical accessibility and safety. For example, um, even though like they live in the city, so they have a pretty much public space in their neighborhood, but some older people feels they don't have much space they can go. It is kind of like their uh, psychological accessibility is not good, and mm, sometimes it can be ageism. Like I'm an older people, but I don't want be together with other older people, or like that public space is only for the younger generation. So I think I cannot go there like that. So this kind of like psychological aspect is also important. So yes, it is kind of like a biggest surprising point in my research so far.
Thank you so much for that. And maybe as a last question then to you, Dasup, so you're halfway your trajectory now. What would you recommend people who also would like to do a PhD here? What would be your single one recommendation? And it can be drink more coffee, of course, but anything else is fine too.
Yes, actually there's so much things,
Oh, okay,
but
go.
yes, but I think you have to open about your like a life plan or something, because yes, the PhD is really the program is really life-changing moment. So like your like research plan or your life plan can be changed, and it is really, I think, really positive things. Like there is lots of opportunities and possibilities than I expected. So yes, just open to your like life, and yes, I think PhD program is really hard, and yeah, sometimes I really doubt about myself, but yeah, sometimes you really like oh yes, I'm really glad that I did this because I didn't expect I could meet this kind of people, or yes, there are so many things happen, so just open to your
Oh,
yes,
absolutely.
any plan, yes.
I absolutely agree. And all of us think that, once we're in the program, we all think that, oh my goodness, I'm not the smartest one in the class. And then, but then you discover actually you can push yourself and learn new things and indeed be open to all those experiences. Thank you so much for that, Dasup. Really much appreciate. And Dasup will stay on. So if you have a specific question for Dasup later on, please stay on. You can ask it later on in the session. But for now, we'll switch to another colleague of ours, Isa. Hello, there's Isa. Hello, Isa.
Hello.
Isa, welcome also. Thank you so much for joining us. Could you tell the audience a bit about your research? What is it about and why are you doing it?
Yes, thank you for having me. My research basically centers the housing experience of the urban middle class in Indonesia. So my case study is Indonesia, and it started from sort of my observation that there is a middle class housing crisis all over the world, in that it's not necessarily unique in the Indonesian context, that the middle class are struggling because commercial house prices have become so high, and they've made more than the limits for the government subsidy, so they can't get subsidy, but they also can't afford to buy houses in the commercial market. And the Indonesian case is specific enough for me because there's a special elements attached to it, how the Greater Jakarta specifically is developed. There's the conurbation, everything it ties into this experience for the urban middle class households to find housing, which makes it very hard for them. And so essentially what my research wants to understand that is lacking right now is this process of the urban middle class, how they decide which houses they want to purchase, and is it purely about how much money they have, or is there any other considerations that is being put to it? Because obviously purchasing a house is not like me buying iced coffee, but it's so much money, and it's so complex, and you have to think of a million different variables, like your family, your kids. Do you want to live near your parents, or Is it near like a good school for your kids and things like that? There's so much. It's so complex, and currently there's not enough knowledge, specifically in the Indonesian context, that understands how the middle class make this housing decision. So that's basically what I want to study here.
And so before you came here, you were a lecturer already at the university. Why did you decide to do a PhD? In particular, why did you decide to do a PhD in on the other part of the world where winters are longer and temperatures are lower?
Yeah, why did I decide to leave the sunny Indonesia
Indeed.
for this rainy? But yeah, like you mentioned before, PhD is basically inevitable for people who works in academia, and that's also part of the reason why I decided to do PhD, because quite honestly, you can't really get anywhere. You can't get ahead without a degree if you want to continue working as a lecturer. And I loved working as a lecturer, so that's where I am. And it was an inevitability. Like I had to do it sooner or later, and then I do it. And because I wanted to research housing, it seemed to make sense to do it in the Institute for Housing and Urban Development Studies. So it brought me here.
Here we are.
Yes, here we are in the cloudy and rainy Netherlands, although it's sunny right now where I am.
Yeah, to be fair, because I always make jokes about the weather in the Netherlands, but today's actually really agreeable.
Yeah.
So for those folks who think that's always raining here, no, not at all, only sometimes. Isa, could you talk us a bit about the hurdles that you came across in your research? I mean, you're relatively early in your project. What did you
Yes.
find the main obstacles?
Basically, like what Lasse said, you are training to be an independent researcher. So research for me is not new, but independent research is new. So what I found really challenging in this first year is having to make my own decisions.
Yeah.
It's really hard because as a junior lecturer, I did research, but as members of the research team. So I did not make a lot of like major research decisions on my own, and here everything is on me. Like I have to decide which papers to read, even which perspective to read the papers on, and then decide what methodology I want to use, and not only decide the things, but also being able to defend them and justify them in a way that is convincing. Lasse always say it's not convincing, like in a way that's like convincing and so academic enough, based on previous theory, based on data. So it's challenging to sort of just make this decision, because it's a lot of things to consider at the same time, to balance between, sort of practical feasibility, but also like making it like PhD worthy. I would say like it needs to be complex enough that it's on a PhD level, but also something that I could really see that it's feasible there's a lot of restriction realistically in research, like budget wise, timing wise, and energy wise. Like it needs to be feasible, but in a way to balance these decisions and to make sure that they're still academically complex enough. It's been really challenging, and I'm still in the trenches. So check back with me in a few months and see if I make it out.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about that bit. But could you on that complexity, could you say a few things on how you thought about housing before you started working on this and how you think about it now? So housing for the middle class in Indonesia, that is. Has there been a change perspective, or I don't know?
Yeah. So this began with some sort of a personal observation, because I am also a middle class in Indonesia, and a few years back I bought a house. We bought a house, and in this process it was horrible, but I thought it was just because we maybe didn't have enough money, that it would have, like, everything would be fine even if we just had more money, per se, because in my head at that time housing was a very economical thing, right? So because land is scarce, the supply is limited, but the demand keeps rising. No wonder the price is so high. I thought it was a very simple economical equation like that. But the more I read into it, the more I did my research, it occurred to me that this housing crisis, in a way, is very systemic. Like there's a lot more interplays in how these policies are made, how these policies are formed, and even with my own perspective, why I wanted to buy this certain house, why I did not want to buy this certain house, and why it's very different for each people. So it's very complex thing when we have to consider the demand of so many different people. But at the same time, if you don't consider this demand, then your housing supply will not be efficient, which is unfortunately the case in Indonesia. There are a lot of vacant houses that are built. They are just not being used by the owners. So yeah, so it's very complex, and definitely my perspective has changed in that, seeing housing in more than just a big purchase, like a big asset. It's not just an asset, but it's a big part of life, basically, So yeah.
Yeah. And so for those who know, the Netherlands is facing its own housing crisis, also around affordable housing, which sounds bizarre, but it is a real thing. And so I'll ask the impossible question, Isa, and that is, to what extent do you think that we here in the Netherlands could actually learn from your research, although it takes place, in Indonesia? Is there something that you believe could be transferred to the Dutch context?
To be quite honest, I've no idea yet if it can be transferred, specifically because in my research I focus a lot on like cultural aspects of the middle class. Like, for example, how the middle class decide which house to buy. Maybe they consult their parents first. They ask for help from their parents, they ask help from their siblings. They want to buy a house that is closer to a mosque, probably. So there are my research talks a lot about like really cultural things, which I feel is very different with the Netherlands case, in a way, because the culture itself is just already very different. But basically, I think what stands is that demand, from what I've read. Obviously, I haven't done the research yet, still in the process of phase, but from what I've read, there's quantitative demand, but there's also a qualitative demand that is not getting enough attention from policymakers, I believe, worldwide or wherever countries, that people don't just pick a house because I have the money and this is the only place that I can afford, but also there are a million other considerations from people when they're purchasing a house. So I believe that there is maybe something that we can all pay more attention to, so that we can actually build a housing supply that caters to not only just the quantitative demand, but also the qualitative demand of the people we want to build them for.
Thank you so much. And then I would like to ask you the same question, or similar question that I asked to Dasuf, and that is, for those who may come to the Netherlands, what would you recommend? What is your number one recommendation?
To study the PhD, or just to come in the Netherlands?
I mean, yeah, we can also do the touristy bit. Let's do that later. Let's focus on the PhD first.
Yeah. For me, in pursuing a PhD, I think it's very important to have a strong why, in terms of both personally and academically. Personally, it's really hard, like Dasop just said. Actually, I wasn't sure I should say this because I didn't want to put you off of doing PhD, but in reality, PhD is really hard, and there will be a lot of like low moments, and having a strong why, I think, will help keep you afloat when the going gets tough. But also academically, having a strong why, substantively with your research, it's sort of like the thread that gets you going, which I can say from experience because I'm doing my proposal, and my supervisors keep asking me why this, why that, and like knowing what you want to do and why you want to do it, it's going to be very helpful especially when your supervisor asks you to make a causal diagram. It's very helpful to know to have a strong why. Know why you do what you do. So that's
I'm so looking forward to that causal diagram. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Isa. Thank you so much. And if there's one thing that both of you show is you're very, very driven and very motivated to make this work. There's a personal drive to make it work, and not just to get the degree, but really to understand the topic in depth, and that really shines through. So thank you so much for both of your contributions, and please stay on. So if you have questions for Isa, you can also ask them in a couple of minutes. For now, I would like to just bring everything together. Natalie, could you talk a bit about how people can stay connected with us?
Of course. Again, a big thank you to you, Isa and Dasso, for joining our panel today. And thank you, Lasse, for doing such an amazing job hosting it. As mentioned, we will have a short Q&A session later, but I can imagine that we might run out of time, or maybe not all your questions are answered during this session. So it's also important to know how to follow up with us. We are active on social media. We're, for instance, active on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, but we are also on YouTube. And this entire panel will also be posted there. So if you ever feel the need to rewatch anything, feel free to look us up on YouTube and find us there. You can also scan our QR code, which will take you to our IHS website, where you can find the full overview of our PhD program, as well as ways to stay in touch. This can be through email, but we also have the option to book a meeting directly with one of our admissions officers or our program manager. So you can really have a one-on-one meeting and ask all the questions you have during that meeting. For this Q&A session, you can make use of our lovely Q&A chat and ask all the questions that you have regarding to the program or to Dasso and Isa respectively. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Nathalie. And that concludes the formal bit from our side. And I would like to open the floor to anyone who has a question. Nathalie is monitoring the chat. But I also see people raising hands. Natalie, please lead. We try to answer as best as we can.
Yes, I see your hand, Rebecca. I will, let me see if I can enable your mic. It should work.
Hello?
If you unmute your,
Yep. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very interesting because it's like the first time I've really had a PhD focused presentation. I would like to ask more about what exactly are the kinds of doors that would open if you do a PhD. I understand that, of course, academia is one, but I was thinking more about, let's say, a think tank or research institutions like an urban living lab or things like this. Is a PhD strictly necessary, and how does it make you much more competitive of a candidate?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's an excellent question. So to restate, for an academic career, this is a mandatory thing. In other places, sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. Some, from our own experience, some public administrations require PhD for higher senior roles. And the same goes for certain consultancies, and they may also require that. So I guess on the whole, it often is associated with senior and leading roles in big organizations, but it's not a rule. In some parts of the world, it is not as important as it is in other parts of the world. So that is something that will be different for every individual who's in the session today. But to your other point, I think it's really important to recognize that the number of people with master degrees is going up year over year over year. Just simply more people manage to study and obtain a master's degree. And knowing that there are more and more people who have that degree, it is also very clear that having a PhD would give you a competitive edge there. And that, indeed, as you said, it can be for think tanks, it can be for advisory work, consultancy work, and all that. There are many ways in which that could make you stand out. I think I would like to emphasize that the degree itself matters, but more importantly is the expertise you bring in. In many organizations, we will be primarily interested in hearing from you what you can tell the world about your research. So I can totally imagine Isa being consulted on these things around housing and housing market and how it works, and understanding that it's not just a quantitative demand, and then she can explain to policymakers all around the world why this is so. And Dasub can explain urban planners around the world that creating good public spaces is not just a matter of designing it with nice, I don't know, vegetation or something like that, but actually that the psychological and social safety plays a huge role in that too. And those factors are very different from just designing a space. So I think the expertise in the end is the most important bit. But then again, having the degree to show that you have that expertise is incredibly important too. So. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. I have one more question, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yes. I just would like to ask generally what matters most in PhD applications. Is it like your master's coursework grades, your PhD research topic fit, the fit with your supervisor, things like that?
Yeah, thank you. So we do look at academic performance. The exact rules are, the criteria, not rules, the criteria are on the website, but we do look at prior academic performance. We are very open when it comes to topics because urban studies is such a wide field that many different topics can fit under it. There are things we cannot supervise, so we sometimes get very technical proposals, and we are not engineers, so that part we cannot do. Other than that, we really try to accommodate many different topics. I think our program also shows that we have many different people in the program, or from different expertise in different disciplines. And the fit with the supervisor is something we take care of. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Who's next, Nathalie?
I see Haftom has its hands raised. So if you can please unmute Haftom, then we can hear your question.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for nice presentation and nice announcement for both of them. Just my question is already raised by the first question, but mostly I have MA in Geography and Environmental Study. Just how will be applied to PhD program which related to urban and governance? That is a similar question, the first one.
Could you please repeat that question, because I'm not sure I fully got it.
Yeah, my question is how will be applied for PhD program?
Oh, how to apply for the PhD program. Yeah, so the exact procedures on the website, so please go to ihs.nl and look for the procedure there. It's written out in full how it goes. In short, you will be required to write a short proposal and match it with a funding source. And then you'll submit that. It will be reviewed, which we do a couple of times per year, 4 or 5 times, I think it is. And then if we think that your background matches and the proposal matches, then there's funding, then it will be a yes. So there's a couple of steps you will have to take. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor.
We have a few more questions in the chat. First is Eyul, who is an architect and spatial planner from Ethiopia and is applying for a PhD in housing related topics. He is asking if we have any advice or directions regarding applying without a funding at hand.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So our program is tuition fee based, and there are living costs associated also with the program, right? We normally our researchers move over to the Netherlands, and that is and that costs money. So applying without any funding usually is not a great idea, because that means that a lot of operational details of your program cannot be carried out. To help you all, we have a list of funding sources on the website where you can see which agency may have funding available for you. We rarely fund positions ourselves. We do it very occasionally, less than once a year. But on the whole, most of the people fund their project via an external funder, such as Chinese Scholarship Council or LDPP in Indonesia, and there are others too. Thank you.
Yes, I saw some hands go up. Is your question also answered with this, or do any of you still have a question pending? Yes, Isa? Oh, you're on the mute.
No, sorry. I accidentally pressed it, actually. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Oh,
Oh, someone else is raising their hand, so.
Yes, Ramat, go ahead.
Hi. Yes. Yeah, I think my question was pretty much answered before. I also have a similar questions, but so could you maybe from I'm Rahmat from Indonesia, so I'd like to hear a perspective from Isa as well. Could you also share how funding typically works for international PhD candidate at IHS? We know that we have the LPDP funding, for example, or maybe whether funding is usually tied to supervisors' projects, or if candidates are expected to apply for external scholarships and what support is available for that, especially after you have finished your master's within the Netherlands. Thank you.
thanks. So I'll take that last bit first, and then Isa, please, if you could comment on the LPDP, then that would be great. So we generally encourage people to look for the funding themselves. We can advise you on that, but we don't have funding available. So we cannot fund your entire 4 years here. So there will always be a need for external funding, which you primarily will have to find yourself, as most people have done in the program, or all of them actually. But then with some help from our side. And then perhaps, Isa, you could speak a bit more about the specifics in Indonesia, please.
Yeah, so just so it happens that I am an LPDP awardee. So my PhD is funded by LPDP, and it's as you might know if you're Indonesian, basically usually you know that it's a full ride. They pay for basically everything, including life costs, visa, insurance, and everything on financial wise, because everything is at cost. I don't really spend much of my own money for the degree, obviously, but also if I'm not mistaken, sometimes there could be like internal PhD situation. Lastly, if I'm not mistaken, there also I think one of our colleagues is also like a Marie Curie awardee. That it's more international, so maybe from someone from Indonesia can apply to it as well. But I'm not aware of different scholarships that is quite flexible. Usually, for example, like Marie Curie, usually they have like certain topics for your research that you have to fit into. But with LPDP, since it's basically they're basically reviewing you based on what you want to do, so you get to decide first what you want to do, and then they see how it can contribute to the country and so forth. So if you're from Indonesia, I think it's worth it to try and get an LPDP scholarship. But otherwise, I believe there might be like a lot of scholarship knowledge out there that I'm not aware of. But I should also mention that the admission officers in IHS have been very helpful, especially in the process of me applying, because I'm uprooting my whole family, right? I'm moving everyone out here. They were very helpful with the visa process, with the insurance, with everything. So if you've managed to get the funding, I think it's been such a great experience here.
Thanks so much, Isa. Thanks, much appreciated. I hope that answers that question.
Yes, we have another question from Danesh. First, he thanks us for the presentation, but he is also wondering, both PhD candidates that presented today conduct research projects based on their own countries or other countries. And he's asking, how do you convince IHS to support research that is not directly related to the Netherlands? And he also has a follow-up question, which is, how do you find professors to serve as supervisors in such cases?
Okay, I'll take that last bit, and then Dasup and Isa can talk about the first bit. On the last bit, we usually manage that. So sometimes people already know professor and they contact them directly, and that is absolutely fine. And in many cases, that is, people do not know that, but then we manage it on our end. And we try to match, as I said before, if we don't have the capacity in terms of expertise, then we can't do it. We offer a broad range of expertise at the Institute, which you can look up on the website, and then we try to match your project with the right set of supervisors. It's always more than one, to make it work. And perhaps Dasup and Isa, maybe you can comment on the first part of the question. How did you convince us?
Dasup, you go first.
Dasup, you're muted. Could you please unmute?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. When I started my PhD, actually, I didn't know about my supervisors. I didn't know about Asa, and also Sophia, she's my supervisor. And I only know about IHS. And actually, I contacted other researchers at the IHS and talk about my PhDs and my research topics. And after I finish my registration, Lhasa and I talk about our research, my research, and yes, actually, like Sophia, I don't know about the process how Sophia became my supervisor, but like yes, Sophia was introduced, yes, and she was really great supervisor. And yes, she recommended me so many like knowledge and like methods. So I think like I have a kind of like previous thinking about like I have to contact my supervisors and I have to search my supervisors by myself. But I think IHS helps this kind of process for the new PhD researchers. Yes.
How's that for you, Isa?
I think, I don't know if I've managed to convince them, but the great thing about IHS is that it's very diverse. So a lot of the lecturers, a lot of the professors here, they've done research in all the different parts of the world, so they're not really foreign to whatever case you're presenting. And the thing with being a very diverse environment is that they're very open to learning like new case studies, and they're very excited to know that you're bringing new things to the table that maybe is not something that they encounter on a daily basis. Like they've known most things about the Netherlands. Oh, this is a case from a different part of the world, and they're actually excited to learn about it, which is very nice for me. So it wasn't a case about sort of like me convincing them, but about like doing specifically trying to convince them that this case outside of the Netherlands is worth doing, but just sort of the contribution to the knowledge that I want to bring is basically what's convincing them. I didn't think it mattered in my personal process of trying to get supervisors that I was doing it in Indonesia. It was even questioned, but yeah.
No, exactly. And I think I should really emphasize that although we're based in the Netherlands, most, if not the vast majority of our research takes place elsewhere. We do occasionally do research work in Europe, but it's not very specific based in the Netherlands. The research itself, even though we are here in Rotterdam. So yeah, thanks both. Really, really useful. We really welcome research from different parts of the world.
Rebecca is also wondering what the peer review process is like and how important it is to publish papers for research-focused careers.
So on the last bit, publishing papers is really important if you would like to pursue an academic career or research-focused career after this. So that is what we encourage, though technically it is not necessary for a graduation. You can also graduate on the basis of a monograph. So we offer both. A collection of papers or a monograph. We leave that. We usually do not make that decision very early in the project because we want to see how the research develops, and at some point then a decision has to be made. If you really would like to pursue an academic career later on, then yes, then I would recommend you publish those papers. As for the review of your proposal, it will once you have cleared the admissions process, the intake process, then usually I will review it together with another expert, an expert on the field on a specific topic, and then we discuss the extent to which we think that this is a viable proposal. Quite often, actually, we think that there is merit, but then we would like to see a few improvements. So we often actually send it back and say, hey, could you detail this a bit more? Could you detail that a bit more? So we don't just say no, we actually would like to foster it and see, and just to bring it just one step further so that it becomes a viable proposal. So that's how the review process takes place.
With that, we are concluding our PhD panel. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined, and we really hope that you enjoyed this session. Thank you, Isa and Dasup, again for joining as well, and also for hosting it. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much,
for
all.
having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
If you have any questions that you feel like weren't answered, or if you come up with any questions, again, feel free to contact us at any of these ways.
Indeed. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.